The courthouse hallway would come later, with its coffee smell and fluorescent buzz and the weight of documents that don't lie. That moment when Vicky would stand too close, chin lifted, voice low and certain, promising to take everything. But before the lawyers and the judge and the evidence carefully labeled in manila folders, there was the restaurant, the Metropolitan, with its crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths and 40 guests who never once looked toward the corner table near the kitchen doors. I sat in my rental car outside, engine off, watching through plate glass windows that turned the scene into something theatrical. My sister's birthday party, 38 years old, celebrated with champagne towers and a three-tier cake and laughter that carried through brick walls into the Seattle drizzle. Vicky wore red that night, Versace, or something meant to look like it. Hair curled in blonde waves that caught the light every time she turned her head, which was often, because she knew how to work a room. She always had. But I wasn't watching Vicky. My mother sat at table 7, tucked beside a support beam where the lighting didn't quite reach. Grace Eleanor Hayes, 68 years old, wearing a gray cardigan I recognized from 5 years ago. Maybe longer. Her hands stayed folded in her lap, fingers twisted together in that way people do when they're trying to take up less space, when they're trying not to be noticed. An afterthought. That's what the placement card said, according to Lily's text from an hour earlier. Not Mom's name, not Mrs. Hayes, just a handwritten note on hotel stationery. Extra seat if needed. My niece had photographed it before anyone could throw it away, before the shame of it could be hidden under napkins and excuses. The phone buzzed again. Lily, 16 years old and sharper than anyone gave her credit for. Aunt Emma, please come. Grandma's been sitting alone for 2 hours. I can't watch this anymore. I could see my niece now, seated 3 tables away from her grandmother, phone hidden under the table edge. She kept glancing over, checking. The only person in that room who seemed to remember that the woman in the gray cardigan had a name, a history, a right to be seen. The guests moved around my mother like she was furniture. A waiter nearly knocked her water glass reaching for someone else's plate. She caught it before it spilled, apologized to no one in particular. No one heard. Vicky stood at the center of everything, exactly where she liked to be. Someone asked about family, and she waved her champagne flute in a vague gesture that might have indicated my mother, or might have just been the alcohol talking. Over there somewhere, she prefers quiet. But that was a lie. I knew it the way you know things about people you grew up with, the way their truths get written into your bones, whether you want them there or not. My mother didn't prefer quiet. She'd taught elementary school for 35 years, had filled classrooms with noise and laughter, and the particular chaos of children learning to read. She'd directed school plays, she'd sung in church choir, she'd hosted dinner parties where the conversation lasted until midnight, and the neighbors complained about the volume. She didn't prefer quiet. She'd been placed there, hidden, like something embarrassing that couldn't be left at home but didn't deserve a real seat either. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. 12 years I'd been gone. 12 years of deployment schedules and night watches and learning to read situations in languages I barely spoke. The Army had taught me how to inventory supplies in the dark, how to track money through 3 layers of shell companies, how to stay calm when mortars shook the walls. What it hadn't taught me was how to recognize when the enemy wore your sister's face. The party wound down around 10. Guests filtered out in groups, some drunk, most loud. Vicky stood by the door accepting hugs and air kisses, playing the gracious host. My mother waited by the coat check, small and still. No one hugged her goodnight. I started the car. 48 hours earlier, I'd been signing separation papers at Fort Bragg, turning in my uniform, accepting handshakes from people who kept saying, "Thank you for your service," like it was supposed to mean something. Now, I sat in Seattle rain watching my mother be erased in real time, and the rage felt cleaner than anything I'd experienced in a combat zone. At least there, you knew who you were supposed to shoot back at. The house sat in Ballard, one of those Victorian 2-stories that Seattle pretended to preserve while pricing out everyone who'd actually lived there. My father had bought it in 1985 for $70,000. Now it was worth close to $1 million. Not that it mattered. Money only matters when you control it. I pulled up to the curb at 3 in the afternoon, when I knew Vicky would be out. She kept a schedule printed on the refrigerator. Yoga at 2, consultation at 3:30, networking event at 6. The consultation was with a lawyer, according to Lily's text. Not the first one she'd seen in the past month. My mother opened the door before I could knock. Her face went pale. "Emma, you're home. Why didn't you call?" The question came out wrong, more alarm than joy. I stepped inside and she backed up fast, glancing toward the stairs like she expected someone to be watching. I wanted to surprise everyone. We stood in the entryway. This woman who taught me to read and how to stand up straight, and that kindness was never weakness. Now she looked like a stranger wearing my mother's skin. 20 pounds lighter, minimum. Clothes that hung loose. Hair that needed cutting but probably didn't matter anymore to anyone making decisions about hair. She hugged me and I felt every rib. The house smelled wrong. Not bad, just sterile. Like a hotel trying too hard. The photos on the wall had changed. Before, there had been family pictures going back decades. A visual timeline of birthdays and graduations and ordinary Sundays. Now the walls showed mostly Vicky. Vicky at some gala. Vicky shaking hands with someone whose face suggested money. Vicky, Vicky, Vicky. The pictures with me had been moved. Boxed up, my mother would tell me later. Stored in the basement where the pipes leaked and the cardboard turned soft. I need to start dinner. Vicky gets home at 7 and she likes everything ready. It was 3:15. Dinner was 3 hours and 45 minutes away. "Mom, sit down. I'll help." No, you just got here. You should rest. The guest room is made up, second floor, the one with the blue curtains. The guest room. In my own childhood home. I'd grown up in the room with the window seat, the one overlooking the backyard where we'd strung lights every summer. That room now belonged to Vicky, according to the monogrammed towels visible through the half-open door. "Where's your room, Mom?" She hesitated, then pointed to a door I'd always known as the den, the smallest room in the house, barely big enough for a desk and bookshelf. Now it held a twin bed and a dresser with 3 drawers. No pictures. No personal items except a single book on the nightstand. Something about gardening that looked unread. "It's easier this way. Closer to the kitchen so I can hear if your father needs anything at night." My father. Will Hayes, 71 years old. Alzheimer's eating his memory in chunks while the rest of him kept breathing. He sat in the living room now, staring at a television that wasn't on. He didn't look up when I walked in. "Hi, Dad." His eyes tracked toward me, searching. Then something clicked, some neuron firing in the right sequence. "The army daughter. You came back." "Yeah, Dad, I came back." Good. Your mother needs you. She won't say it, but she does." Then the light faded, and he was gone again, looking at his hands like he'd forgotten why they were attached to him. In the kitchen, I found the refrigerator divided into territories. Top shelf, organic vegetables, almond milk, imported cheese, smoked salmon. Post-it notes marked each item. Vicky's lunch, Vicky's dinner prep. Do not touch. Bottom shelf, bread that was probably expired, a half container of leftover pasta, an apple going brown. No notes there. It didn't need them. How long has it been like this? My mother's hands moved faster, chopping vegetables she didn't look at. "Since your sister moved back in, she's very particular about her diet. She's trying to eat clean." "And you?" "I eat fine. I'm not as active. I don't need as much." That was a lie, and we both knew it. I opened a cabinet looking for plates and found them organized by size, each stack labeled. Everyday dishes, Vicky's dishes, guest dishes. Like we were running a restaurant that only one person could eat at. The cutting board rattled. I looked over and saw my mother's hands shaking. "Mom, I'm fine, just tired. I didn't sleep well last night." "When do you sleep well?" She didn't answer. The knife kept moving, mechanical, learned motion with no thought behind it. This was what 70-hour weeks looked like when they weren't paid, when they weren't even acknowledged. I spent that first week watching. The Army had taught me surveillance, how to log details without letting them see you cataloging their crimes. I kept a notebook, the kind I'd used overseas. Military habit. Record everything, trust nothing. Day 1, Monday. My mother woke at 6 to start breakfast. Vicky slept until 9. The first words out of my sister's mouth, barefoot in silk pajamas that cost more than Mom's entire wardrobe. "The toast is burnt." I can't eat burnt toast. It's carcinogenic. My mother made fresh toast. Apologized. Vicky scrolled through her phone and didn't say thank you. At 10, my mother had a cardiology appointment. Something about irregular heartbeat and medication adjustments. She'd mentioned it the night before, casual, like it wasn't important. But when Vicky announced she needed the car to get to the spa, the appointment got canceled. You can go next week, it's not urgent. Dr. Park said I should come in this month. Well, you're still here, so it can wait. My mother nodded. The appointment would get rescheduled twice more before I finally drove her myself. Day 3, Wednesday. Vicky hosted something she called a networking event. 8 women, champagne, catered appetizers that filled the house with garlic and pretension. My mother spent 4 hours serving, circulating with trays, refilling glasses. The guests treated her like staff. One asked if she could have the lemon tart recipe. Another wanted to know if the house cleaner worked Saturdays. No one introduced her. No one said, "This is Victoria's mother," or even just, "This is Grace." She moved through rooms like a ghost, visible only when holding something useful. I sat on the stairs watching. At one point, Lily came down and stood next to me, arms crossed, jaw tight. She was 16, but looked older in that moment, anger aging her past childhood. This is fucked up. Language. Sorry, this is deeply messed up. Better? Accurate. She leaned against the banister, watching her own mother hold court like minor royalty. Vicky was telling some story about a charity fundraiser, making herself the hero, laughing at the punchline everyone saw coming. The other women laughed too, right on cue. I used to think she was just stressed. That's what she always said. She's stressed. She's doing everything. She's overwhelmed. But now I think she's just mean. How long has it been like this? Since we moved in, 4 years ago maybe? It started small, little comments, then bigger ones, then just this. We watched my mother collect empty glasses, stack them carefully so they wouldn't clink too loud. Someone had spilled red wine on the coffee table. Mom appeared with a cloth, cleaning it before anyone could mention the stain. When she stood up, she caught me watching. Her expression said, "Please don't make a scene." So I didn't. Not then. Day 5, Friday. I found my mother eating leftovers in the kitchen at noon, standing by the sink. Cold pasta, no plate. When she saw me, she looked embarrassed. I was just finishing up the old food. Hate to waste it. There's fresh food in the fridge. That's Vicky's, for her meals this week. Mom, you live here. She rinsed the container, set it in the drying rack. Her back stayed to me. Your sister works hard. She manages a lot. The least I can do is make things easier for her. By not eating? She didn't answer. Outside the window, a crow landed on the fence, then flew away. I thought about all the ways people disappear, how you can live in a house and still be gone. That evening, I checked the medicine cabinet. 17 prescription bottles, all in Vicky's name. Ambien, Xanax, Adderall, 3 different painkillers. Below them, pushed to the back, my mother's heart medication. The bottle dated 2 months ago. Nearly full. She was rationing it, or forgetting to take it, or too tired to care anymore. Day 7, Sunday. Family dinner, which meant the 3 of us, plus my father, who mostly pushed food around and forgot why we were sitting together. Vicky talked through the meal, phone next to her plate, checking it every 30 seconds. I have a meeting tomorrow that could be huge. Real estate development, consulting contract, could be 6 figures if I play it right. That sounds good. It's about time something paid off. I've been working my ass off for years. Barely anything to show for it. My mother cut my father's chicken into small pieces, helped guide his fork. He'd forgotten how to chew properly, needed reminding. It took all her attention. Vicky kept talking. You know how hard it is to build a career when you're also managing everything here? The bills, the doctors, the house maintenance. It's exhausting. I set down my fork. What career? Excuse me? I'm just asking. What do you do? Exactly. Vicky's face tightened. I consult. Business development. Strategic planning. For which companies? Various. It's complicated. I'm sure. Just wondering if any of them actually pay. Her eyes went cold. That look I remembered from childhood. Right before she'd tell Mom I'd broken something she'd broken herself. Emma, I don't appreciate the implication. I work very hard. I can see that. You must be exhausted from all those yoga sessions and spa days. Those are networking opportunities, right? And what does Mom do while you're networking? My mother's voice came soft. Emma, please. But Vicky was already standing, chair scraping loud. You've been back 1 week. 1 week and you think you understand everything. I've been here 4 years. 4 years of managing this household, taking care of our parents, keeping everything running. Where were you? Oh, right, playing soldier. I wasn't playing. Whatever. Point is, you left. You chose to leave. So don't come back now and judge decisions you weren't here to make. She grabbed her phone and left. We heard her bedroom door slam upstairs. My father looked confused, asked if it was time for bed. My mother said yes, helped him stand. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. She shook her head, tired. You're not wrong, but sometimes being right doesn't help. That night, I sat in the guest room, my exile, my demotion from daughter to visitor, and added up everything I'd seen. The numbers told a story that didn't need translation. My mother worked 14 hours a day minimum, no days off, no salary, no respect. The technical term was elder abuse, domestic servitude, financial exploitation. The plain English was, my sister was using our mother like furniture. I opened my laptop and started searching. Elder law attorneys in Seattle, adult protective services, fiduciary duty, guardian ad litem. The legal system had language for this, mechanisms, ways to intervene when family became harm. My phone buzzed. Lily, sending an address. Golden Gardens Park tomorrow night. Can you take Grandma? She needs to get out of this house. We both do. I typed back, I'll be there. Then I kept reading. By sunrise, I understood exactly what kind of war this was going to be, and what it would cost to win. The park sat on Puget Sound's edge, where the city gave way to water and sky. We arrived at sunset, 3 generations of women who'd learned different things about silence. My mother brought bread for the ducks, then realized feeding them was probably illegal now. Everything was illegal now. She put the bread back in her bag. Lily spread a blanket on the beach. The tide was going out, leaving dark sand and shells and the smell of salt and kelp. Seagulls screamed overhead. A few people walked dogs in the distance, far enough to be scenery. We sat in a row. Grandmother, daughter, granddaughter. Lily leaned into my mother's shoulder. My mother didn't move, like she was afraid any motion might break whatever fragile piece we'd found. Grandma, why do you let her treat you like that? Direct question, teenager Blunt. My mother took a long time answering. It's complicated, sweetheart. It's not, though. She's mean to you. She makes you work all the time. She acts like you're not even there. I know it looks that way. It doesn't look that way, it is that way. I've watched it for 4 years. And I'm done watching. My mother turned to look at her granddaughter. Really look, like she was seeing someone she'd underestimated. Lily, I don't want you to worry. I'm already worried. I'm worried you're going to have a heart attack from stress. I'm worried you're not taking your medication because you're too busy cooking 3 meals a day for someone who doesn't even say thank you. I'm worried that one day I'll come downstairs and you'll just be gone. And Mom will say it was inevitable. And everyone will believe her because that's what people do. They believe the version that's easiest. Tears ran down my mother's face, silver tracks catching the last light. I'm sorry you've seen all this. I'm not sorry. Someone needed to see it. Someone needed to notice. I reached over and took my mother's hand. It felt small, fragile in ways I didn't remember. She'd always seemed sturdy to me, the kind of person who could carry heavy things without complaint. Now I understood that was the problem. People who carry weight too long eventually compress under it. Mom, Lily's right. This isn't okay, and I need to know. Do you want it to change? She looked at the water. The sun had dropped below the horizon, leaving only the afterglow, pink and orange and the blue that comes right before dark. I wasn't always like this. Weak. You're not weak. I used to teach. Did Lily tell you? 35 years. I loved it. Every September, new faces, new chance to help someone learn something they didn't know they needed. I wasn't invisible then. She pulled her hand away, wrapped both arms around herself. When your father got sick, I stopped working. Someone had to be there, and I was retired anyway, so it made sense. Then Vicky lost her job, her apartment, everything falling apart at once. She asked if she could stay here temporarily. I said yes. Of course I said yes. She's my daughter. Temporary turned permanent. It always does. At first, she helped, really helped. She'd take your father to appointments, handle paperwork, cook dinner. I was grateful. Then small things started changing. She suggested I move to the smaller bedroom so she could have space to work. She said I needed to manage the household better, create systems. She started making lists of what I should do each day. Lily spoke up. She made you a schedule, like you were an employee. My mother nodded. I thought maybe she was right. Maybe I was disorganized. Maybe I did need structure. So I followed the schedule, cooked when she wanted, cleaned how she wanted, Stopped going out because she said someone needed to stay with Dad. My friends called less and less. Eventually, they stopped calling at all. She paused, watching a ferry move across the Sound, lights beginning to show in the dusk. Then the money changed. She said we should consolidate accounts, make everything simpler. I signed papers. I didn't read them carefully. She's my daughter. Why would I? She said she was protecting me from stress. What she was actually doing was taking control. How much? A lot. $380,000 from the checking account over 4 years. She mortgaged the house without telling me, $300,000 more. I didn't know about the mortgage until the bank sent a notice. Jesus, Mom, that's theft. She says it was household expenses, management fees. My mother turned to face me directly. Her eyes were clearer than I'd seen them all week, like something had sharpened inside her. But here's what your sister doesn't know. What no one knows except my lawyer. What lawyer? One I found on my own. Last year, when I realized what was happening, I got on the bus. Vicky had taken my car keys, and I went downtown to a legal aid office. They referred me to someone who handles elder abuse cases. I've been meeting with him for 8 months. My mother reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded envelope. Inside was a single document, summary of assets held in irrevocable trust. I scanned the numbers, then scanned them again. Is this real? Every penny my mother, your grandmother, died in 2015. She left me everything. Real estate, stocks, investment accounts. I never told anyone. Not your father, not Vicky. I wanted something that was mine alone. $12 million. 12.3, actually. It's been invested well. Lily's eyes went wide. Grandma, you're rich? Not rich, secure. And it's protected. The trust is irrevocable. I can't touch the principal, just the income. About $400,000 a year. I've been letting it accumulate, not spending it. Waiting. For what? My mother looked at me with something like hope, or maybe just exhaustion that had found a direction to move toward. For you to come home, for help. Because I knew I couldn't do this alone. She pulled out another envelope, this one thicker. Inside, a handwritten journal, dates going back 18 months. Every instance of verbal abuse logged. Every time Vicky took money, every threat about nursing homes. Every moment my mother felt erased. I've been documenting everything. I'm not as helpless as I look. I hugged her, felt Lily's arms wrap around both of us. We stayed like that while darkness settled and the temperature dropped and people with dogs started heading to their cars. When we pulled apart, my mother's face had changed. The softness was gone, replaced by something that looked like steel wrapped in tissue paper. I want my life back. Not the old life, I can't get that. But something with dignity. Something where I'm not invisible. Can you help me? I nodded. Yes, but it's going to get ugly. It's already ugly. At least this way it'll be honest. Lily pulled out her phone, opened a hidden folder, password protected. The screen showed a thumbnail grid of video files. 47 of them. I've been recording Mom. Not all the time, just when she gets mean. I started 8 months ago, after she told Grandma she was worthless in front of me. I wanted proof. She pressed play on one clip. Vicky's voice filled the quiet. You think you get to have opinions? You're living in my house, eating my food, using my electricity. You don't get to complain about anything. My mother's voice smaller. I just asked if we could talk about... No, we're done talking. Do what I tell you, or I'll find somewhere else for you to live. See how you like a nursing home. The video ended. Lily had 46 more... I've got her threatening Grandma, lying about money, telling her friends that Grandma is senile and can't be trusted, calling her a burden. All recorded, all dated, all backed up in 3 different places because I'm not stupid. My mother stared at her granddaughter. You did this? Someone had to. No one else was paying attention. I took the phone, scrolled through the files, each one marked with date and brief description. Evidence, testimony, the kind of thing that holds up in court when everyone's tired of stories and wants facts. We need to talk to a lawyer tomorrow. My mother nodded. I already have an appointment set up. I was waiting for you to be here. I didn't want to go alone. We packed up the blanket and walked back to the car. The city lights reflected off low clouds, turning the sky orange. Everything felt suspended, like we were in the pause before something breaks. In the parking lot, my mother stopped, put a hand on my arm. Emma, I need you to know something. When this starts, she's not going to just accept it. Vicky doesn't lose gracefully. She'll fight dirty. She'll try to turn you against me, say I'm confused or being manipulated. She might even try to get you declared incompetent as my guardian. And if it gets bad enough, she'll use the fact that you left. She'll say you abandoned the family and now you're just coming back for money. Let her say whatever she wants. I've got 12 years of service record proving I know how to document evidence and follow procedure. She's got a gambling debt and a pile of forged signatures. My mother smiled, sad but real. When did you get so tough? The army mostly, but also you raised me. We drove home in silence. Lily sat in back, still scrolling through her videos, checking each one was properly backed up. My mother stared out the window at neighborhoods she'd lived in for 40 years, probably wondering how many of them would still speak to her when this was over. In war zones, you learn to identify the moment things shift from tense to active combat. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it's just a sound that doesn't belong, or someone moving when they should be still. But once you hear it, you know. You can't unknow. We pulled into the driveway and saw lights on upstairs. Vicky's car sat in the garage, blocking mine in. She was home early, waiting. The moment had arrived. My mother took a breath, held it, let it out slow. Okay, let's go. We walked in together, 3 women who decided that invisible was no longer an option. Whatever came next would be loud and public and possibly devastating. But at least it would be true. Vicky stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, face tight with the particular anger of someone who's realized control is slipping. She looked at each of us in turn, calculating. Where were you? Out getting air. For 3 hours? Is there a curfew I don't know about? Her eyes narrowed. Don't be smart with me. This is my house. Actually, the deed is still in Mom and Dad's names. You just live here. For now. But things change. Legal situations get resolved. My mother stepped forward, small movement but deliberate. Victoria, we need to talk. Not now, I have a call in 10 minutes. It can wait. This can't. Something in my mother's voice made Vicky pause, a tone she hadn't heard before, or hadn't heard in years. The teacher voice, the one that meant stop playing and pay attention. Fine, what? My mother looked at me, then at Lily. Drew strength from the fact that she wasn't alone this time. I want you to move out. The words landed quiet, almost polite, but they hit like artillery. Vicky laughed, short and sharp. Excuse me? You heard me. I want you to leave. I'll give you 60 days to find somewhere else. Mom, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious. You're not thinking clearly. Emma just got back. She's putting ideas in your head. Emma's been back 1 week. I've been thinking about this for a year. Vicky's face changed, confusion shifting to something colder. You've been thinking about kicking out your daughter? The daughter who's taken care of you for 4 years while Emma was off doing whatever? Taking care of me? Is that what you call it? What else would you call it? I cook, I clean, I manage everything. You take my money, you treat me like staff, you make me live in the smallest room in my own house, you scheduled a party for your birthday and sat me at a table near the kitchen like I was hired help. Vicky's jaw tightened. If you felt that way, you should have said something. I tried. Every time I try, you shut me down. You tell me I'm too sensitive, too old to understand, too whatever, so I stopped trying. This is absurd. You need me. No, I needed my daughter. What I got was a landlord who doesn't pay rent. Vicky turned to me, fury clear now. You did this. You came back and poisoned her against me. I didn't do anything except watch. Turns out that was enough. She looked at Lily next. And you? You're part of this little conspiracy too? Lily met her mother's eyes, steady. I love you, Mom, but I love Grandma more, and what you're doing to her is wrong. The silence that followed felt heavy, like air pressure dropping before a storm. Vicky stood there processing, running calculations, trying to find an angle. When she spoke again, her voice had gone quiet, which was more dangerous than loud. You're making a mistake, all of you. I know things. I have paperwork, power of attorney, financial records. If you try to push me out, I'll show everyone exactly how much money's been spent on this household, on Dad's care, on everything. And some of those numbers might not look great for you, Mom. Is that a threat? It's a warning. You want to make this ugly? Fine. But remember, I'm the one who stayed. I'm the one who sacrificed. And courts care about that. They care about who was present. My mother didn't flinch. Actually, courts care about documentation. About paper trails, about who had authority to do what and when, and I've been keeping track. For the first time, uncertainty crossed Vicky's face. What do you mean? You'll find out. 60 days, Victoria. I'm being generous. Don't make me change my mind. Vicky stared at her mother, then at me, then back again. She opened her mouth, closed it. For once, she had nothing to say. She left the room. We heard her footsteps on the stairs, the slam of her door, then silence. My mother sat down at the kitchen table. Her hands shook. I poured her water, stood beside her while she drank. That was hard. That was necessary. She nodded, set down the glass, looked at me with eyes that were scared and relieved and determined all at once. So what happens now? Now we call your lawyer, document everything, file for protective orders, and we don't back down. Even when it gets bad? Especially then. Lily sat down on my mother's other side, took her hand. We'll get through this. All of us. Outside, the rain started again. Soft Seattle drizzle that would last until morning. Somewhere upstairs, Vicky was probably making calls, reaching out to lawyers, figuring out her counter strategy. This was far from over. It was barely starting. But for now, in this kitchen that smelled like old coffee and sorrow, 3 women sat together and planned a war that would be fought with depositions and evidence and the kind of truth that doesn't compromise. My mother looked smaller than she had at the park, worn down by years of disappearing. But she sat straight, shoulders back, hands steady now. She'd taught hundreds of children how to be brave when the world felt too big. Time to take her own lesson. The clock read 11:36. Tomorrow we'd start the legal process. Tonight, we'd stay here in the last hours before everything changed, memorizing what peace felt like before the battle started in earnest. I thought about the courthouse again, that moment still weeks away, when Vicky would stand too close and promise to take everything. How she'd smile like she'd already won, like my silence meant surrender. How wrong she'd be. But that was future tense. Right now, I sat with my mother and my niece and tried to remember if there was ever a time this family hadn't been at war with itself. If there were holidays that didn't end in slammed doors and bitter silence. If love had ever been something other than leverage. Maybe not. Maybe we'd always been this broken, just better at pretending. But pretending was over now. Whatever came next would be honest, even if honest meant ugly. My mother spoke into the quiet. Thank you, both of you, for seeing me. We always saw you, Grandma. We were just waiting for you to see yourself. Outside, the rain fell harder, drumming on the roof, filling the gutters, washing the streets clean. Inside, we sat with our secrets and our plans, and the knowledge that everything was about to break open. Let it break. We'd build something better from the pieces. Or we'd drown trying. Either way, we were done being invisible. 72 hours is barely enough time to prepare for war. But that's what we had. 3 days between confrontation and emergency hearing, between demanding Vicky leave and making the court enforce it. The law office sat 23 floors above downtown Seattle, glass and steel pretending to be sophisticated. Daniel Park's nameplate read, Partner, Elder Law and Estate Planning, which meant he'd spent years watching families destroy each other over money and pride. He looked younger than 47, suit pressed sharp, tie perfectly knotted. Korean immigrant parents who'd taught him that presentation mattered, that respect came from details. He listened to my mother's story for 90 minutes without interrupting. Took notes in handwriting so precise it could have been typeset. When she finished, he set down his pen and looked at her with the kind of expression people wear when they've seen this play out too many times. Mrs. Hayes, what you're describing is textbook elder financial abuse, emotional abuse, possible undue influence. Your daughter has systematically isolated you, taken control of assets, and created conditions that resemble indentured servitude. The law has specific remedies for this. My mother's fingers twisted in her lap. But she's my daughter. I don't want her arrested. I just want... Her voice broke. Daniel waited, patient. He'd heard this hesitation before, probably daily. The moment when victims realize that protection requires consequences. I just want my life back, with dignity. Is that possible without destroying everything? He leaned forward, elbows on the mahogany desk that probably cost more than most people's cars. Behind him, the Seattle skyline cut geometric shapes against gray clouds. Rain streaked the windows. Let me be direct. Your daughter has committed multiple crimes. Grand theft, forgery, elder abuse under Washington state law. The evidence you've provided, the journal, the videos, the financial records, this is prosecutable. But you're the victim, which means you get to decide how far this goes. What are my options? Civil action first. We file for an emergency protective order, get her away from you and your assets immediately. Separate bank accounts, revoke any powers of attorney, establish clear boundaries. Then we file a civil lawsuit for recovery of stolen funds. That's option 1, legal but not criminal. And option 2? We involve Adult Protective Services and the prosecutor's office. They investigate, potentially press charges. Your daughter could face prison time. Realistically, 3 to 5 years given the amounts involved. My mother went pale. Lily reached over and gripped her grandmother's hand. But here's what I recommend. We start with option 1. File civil proceedings, get immediate protection, recover what we can. If Victoria cooperates, provides restitution, shows genuine remorse, we stop there. If she fights dirty, escalates, tries to harm you further, then we have option 2 in reserve. We let her actions determine the consequences. That seems fair. Fair is subjective. Effective is what matters. Now I need to understand the full financial picture. You mentioned assets Victoria doesn't know about. My mother pulled out the trust documents. Daniel read them slowly, then read them again. His expression shifted from professional to impressed. 12.3 million in irrevocable trust. Well-structured, properly protected. Your mother's estate attorney knew what they were doing. This is untouchable. Victoria can't access it, can't challenge it, can't claim it. Even if she somehow gained guardianship over you, the trust remains separate. That was Grandma's intention. She didn't trust easily. Smart woman. This changes the strategy significantly. Victoria's been operating under the assumption that you're financially vulnerable, that you need her. When she discovers this asset exists, it eliminates her leverage. She can't threaten you with homelessness or nursing homes. You can afford your own care, your own life. The power dynamic inverts completely. Will we have to tell her about the money? Eventually. But let's use the information strategically. First, we secure your immediate safety and autonomy. Then we reveal the trust during negotiations or trial. Maximum impact. He pulled out a legal pad and started mapping timelines. His pen moved with surgical precision. Here's what happens next. Today, we draft the emergency protective order petition. Tomorrow, we file with King County Superior Court. Within 72 hours, you'll have a hearing. Judge will review evidence, likely grant temporary orders. Victoria will be served notice. She'll need to vacate the house within 48 hours of service. You'll get sole control of the marital accounts, the house, your father's care decisions. That fast? When there's documented abuse and immediate danger, courts move quickly. Elder abuse is taken seriously in Washington. The videos alone would probably be sufficient, but combined with financial records in your journal, this is airtight. What will Vicky do? She'll hire an attorney. She'll file counter motions. She'll probably claim you're being manipulated by Emma, that you're not competent to make these decisions. Standard playbook for abusers when they lose control. But we'll be prepared. My mother sat silent for a long moment, staring at the rain patterns on glass. 70 years of avoiding conflict, of smoothing things over, of being the peacemaker. Now she was about to become the aggressor, at least legally. The weight of it showed in her shoulders. I never wanted to be the kind of mother who takes her daughter to court. You're not taking her to court. You're protecting yourself from someone who happens to be your daughter. The relationship doesn't exempt her from accountability. But she's sick. The gambling, the debt, that's addiction. Doesn't she deserve help? Yes. And there are programs, rehabilitation, therapy. But help doesn't mean immunity. She can get treatment while also making restitution. Those aren't mutually exclusive. Lily spoke up, quiet but firm. Grandma, if you don't do this, Mom will never change. She'll keep taking, keep lying, keep treating you like property. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's enabling. Wisdom from 16 years old. Daniel smiled slightly. Your granddaughter's right. The kindest thing you can do, for yourself and for Victoria, is establish clear limits. Let her experience consequences. Give her the opportunity to grow from this. Right now, she's learned that abuse works, that intimidation succeeds, that theft goes unpunished. Those are dangerous lessons. My mother nodded, decision solidifying. Okay, file everything. Emergency orders, civil suit, all of it. But I want one thing clear. If she gets help, if she genuinely changes, I want the option to reduce penalties. I won't be vindictive. Understood. We'll build that flexibility into our approach. Now, there's one more thing we need to discuss. Your husband, William. Given his Alzheimer's diagnosis, we should petition for guardianship. You as guardian, Emma as backup. This prevents Victoria from trying to claim guardianship herself and using your husband's condition as leverage. She could do that? She could try. Guardianship gives significant legal authority. If she convinced a court that you're not capable and she's the only available family member, she could potentially gain control. It's a long shot, but desperate people make desperate moves. Then yes, whatever we need to do. Daniel spent the next hour walking us through documents, powers of attorney, healthcare directives, guardianship petitions, financial affidavits. My mother signed where indicated. Initials beside initials, building a fortress of paper around her autonomy. The retainer was $25,000. I had 31 in savings, 12 years of military pay saved because there was nothing to spend it on in combat zones. I wrote the check without hesitation. My mother tried to protest, said she'd pay from the trust income. Mom, let me do this. You've carried everything for too long. My turn. She cried then, not sad tears, but something else. Relief, maybe, or the kind of gratitude that comes when someone sees you drowning and actually throws a rope instead of waving from shore. We left the office at noon. The city moved around us, people with briefcases and problems that weren't ours. I thought about how many of them were fighting invisible wars in their own families, how many children were stealing from parents, partners gaslighting partners, the quiet violence that never makes headlines. The documents would be filed by end of business. 72 hours until the hearing. 3 days for Vicky to realize her world was collapsing. We spent those 3 days preparing, not just legal prep, tactical. I'd learned in the Army that successful operations required controlling information flow. We needed to know what Vicky was doing without her knowing what we knew. Rachel Foster arrived from Portland on day 2. My former squad mate, 34 years old, cybersecurity expert, genius with computers, and comfortable operating in gray legal areas. She'd saved my life in Kandahar by hacking enemy communications. Now she'd help save my mother by hacking email accounts. The ethical lines were blurry. The email account was technically the family account, domain registered to my father, which made my mother a legitimate user. But Vicky had changed the passwords. Rachel got us back in within 20 minutes. You know, this might not be admissible in court. Fruit of the poison tree and all that. I don't need it for court. I need it for strategy. Know your enemy. Sun Tzu. Didn't know you read Chinese philosophy. I read whatever kept me alive. Same principle applies here. We set up in my childhood bedroom, the guest room now, laptop on the desk where I used to do homework. Rachel worked with headphones on, fingers moving across keys like a pianist. Lily watched over her shoulder. Fascinated. My mother stayed downstairs maintaining normalcy, cooking meals, playing the role Vicky expected. First pass through Vicky's email revealed the surface layer. Shopping confirmations, spa appointments, networking events that never seemed to produce actual work. Newsletters from casinos. Promotional offers from online betting sites. The digital footprint of someone living beyond invisible means. Then Rachel dug deeper. Trash folder, archived messages, drafts saved but never sent. Okay, this is interesting. Your sister's been corresponding with 3 different law firms in the past month, shopping for representation. What kind of representation? Estate planning, guardianship. And here's the fun one. A firm that specializes in proving incompetence. They help people get their elderly relatives declared legally incapable. My stomach tightened. She was planning this before we even moved. Looks like it. First email is dated 6 weeks ago, right around when you told her you were separating from the military and coming home. So my return triggered this, or accelerated it. Here, listen to this draft. Never sent but saved. Rachel read aloud. I need to move quickly. My sister will be back soon and she'll complicate things. My mother has more money than anyone realizes. Assets I only recently discovered. I need guardianship established before Emma interferes. My mother's heart condition is worsening. There's a window here. That's premeditation. She knew about the trust. Apparently. Question is how? Your mom said nobody knew. We called my mother upstairs. She read the email draft twice, face draining of color. I don't understand. The trust is confidential. Even the attorney who set it up retired years ago. How could Vicky? She stopped, realization hitting like cold water. The safe. I kept the trust documents in the house safe. Vicky asked for the combination last year, said she needed to access insurance papers after your father's fall. I gave it to her. You didn't think your daughter would use it against you. That's normal, Mom. That's how trust works. But she found the documents. She knew. All this time while she was acting like I was poor, helpless. She knew I had $12 million. The violation of it seemed to hurt more than the theft. Not just taking money, but doing it while knowing she didn't need to, choosing cruelty over necessity. Rachel kept searching, found more emails, these to someone named Marcus Chen. Not our lawyer, someone else, private investigator. Your sister hired a PI 3 months ago. Looks like she had him following your mom, documenting her daily activities, looking for evidence of diminished capacity. Rachel clicked through attachments. Photos of my mother at the grocery store, the doctor's office, the park, surveillance reports noting times, locations, behaviors. What was she trying to prove? That your mom is forgetful, disorganized, incapable of managing her own affairs. See this note? Subject frequently appears confused in parking lots, takes excessive time to complete simple tasks. Observed talking to herself in public locations. That's not confusion, that's just being 70 and tired, right? But if you frame it correctly to a judge who's never met her, it looks like dementia. It's manipulation of narrative. Lily leaned closer to the screen. What else did he find? Rachel scrolled. Jackpot. Multiple reports on your mom's daily routines, but also, and this is where it gets criminal, he investigated the trust, got bank statements somehow, documented the full $12.3 million. How? That's supposed to be private. PIs have ways, most aren't legal. Banks have employees who can be bribed, systems that can be hacked, trash that doesn't get shredded. Point is, Vicky knew the exact amount. She had account numbers. She was building a complete file. For what purpose? Rachel opened another email thread, this one between Vicky and someone named Anthony Russo, attorney at Russo and Martinelli, estate litigation. Here's your answer. She was planning to contest the trust, claim it should have been part of the marital estate when your grandmother died. Argue that your mom has no legal right to keep it separate from your father. If she succeeded, half would go to your dad. And if she had guardianship of your dad, she'd control half of $12 million. The scope of it was stunning. Not opportunistic theft, but calculated planning. Vicky hadn't just stumbled into abuse. She'd architected it. There's more. Rachel's voice went quiet. Email to a doctor at Swedish Medical Center. Subject line, medication consultation. What kind of consultation? She was asking about Ambien dosing, specifically whether higher doses could cause memory impairment and confusion. The doctor replied with standard warnings about dependency and cognitive effects. Vicky wrote back thanking him and asking if those effects could be permanent with long-term use. Jesus, she was drugging Mom, or planning to. I don't see evidence she actually did it, but the intent is clear. Make your mom appear incompetent through medication, document the incompetence, use it to gain guardianship. Lily stood abruptly, face flushed. I need to go. I can't. She left the room. We heard her bedroom door close hard. My mother sat frozen, staring at the screen like it might rearrange itself into something less horrific. This was her daughter, the child she'd raised, taught to read, helped with homework, loved through teenage rebellion and early adult failure. And that child had been planning to drug her into incompetence. I don't know her. The woman in these emails, I don't know who that is. Maybe you never did. Maybe we only know people until the moment we stop being useful to them. Harsh, but probably true. The version of Vicky we'd known was the one that benefited from kindness. This version, the one who emerged when control slipped away, had always existed. We just hadn't been looking at the right angle to see her. Rachel downloaded everything, saved it to encrypted drives, backed it up in 3 locations. Chain of custody was questionable, admissibility uncertain, but documentation was power. Knowing what Vicky knew, what she'd planned, how far she was willing to go, that let us stay ahead. Daniel Park called that evening, tone urgent. The hearing is scheduled for Friday morning, 9 a.m., but we have a complication. Victoria's attorney filed an emergency counterpetition an hour ago. What kind of petition? She's asking the court to declare you mentally unfit to manage your own affairs. She's requesting immediate guardianship based on alleged diminished capacity. She's claiming you're being manipulated by Emma, that you're making decisions under duress. that you're not competent to consent to legal proceedings. Can she do that? She can ask. Doesn't mean she'll succeed. But it means Friday's hearing just got bigger. We're now arguing both protection for you and your competence. I'll need you to undergo a psychiatric evaluation before the hearing. Quick assessment by a court-approved psychologist. It's standard procedure when competency is challenged. Will I pass? Mrs. Hayes, you're one of the most articulate, clear-minded clients I've worked with. You'll be fine, but we need documentation. Professional opinion stating you're fully capable. Otherwise, it's your word against Victoria's, and judges err on the side of caution with elderly individuals. The irony wasn't subtle. My mother had to prove she was competent enough to protect herself from abuse, had to demonstrate sufficient mental capacity to explain that she was being treated like she had no mental capacity. The system designed to help her first required that she perform competence, like a trained SEAL. The evaluation happened Thursday morning. Dr. Sarah Lindstrom, clinical psychologist specializing in geriatric assessment. 60 years old herself, kind eyes, questions delivered gently, but probing deep. She ran my mother through cognitive tests, memory exercises, logic puzzles, asked about current events, recent presidents, basic math, questioned her understanding of finances, legal processes, family relationships. 2 hours of proving you're a fully functional human to someone with a clipboard and credentials. I sat in the waiting room with Lily. She'd barely spoken since seeing the emails. Too much information, too fast. The mother she'd known superimposed over the mother she was discovering. Cognitive dissonance is hardest at 16 when you still want to believe adults know what they're doing. Do you think Mom loves me? Or did she just keep me around because I was useful? I don't know. Honest answer, I don't know. But whether she loves you doesn't change what you deserve. You deserve better than this, you know that, right? No. She nodded, unconvincing. Knowing and believing are different continents. Dr. Lindstrom emerged an hour later, spoke briefly with Daniel Park, who'd arrived midway through. Their expressions gave nothing away. Professional poker faces developed through years of delivering news both good and devastating. We waited. Finally, Daniel approached. Mrs. Hayes passed with flying colors. Dr. Lindstrom's assessment is that she demonstrates full cognitive capacity, excellent memory, clear reasoning, no signs of dementia or undue influence. She'll testify to that if needed tomorrow. My mother came out looking exhausted. Not from the test, but from having to take it. From the indignity of proving her humanity to strangers because her own daughter had questioned it. We went home, still ours for now, and found Vicky's car in the driveway. Unexpected. She'd been staying with a friend since the confrontation. Her presence meant something had changed. She sat in the living room with my father, who looked confused by the tension. Vicky stood when we entered, posture rigid, face carefully neutral. We need to talk, all of us, before tomorrow's circus. There's nothing to talk about. The hearing will speak for itself. Mom, please. I know you're angry. I know I've made mistakes, but this, taking me to court, trying to force me out, this is extreme. We're family. We should be able to work this out privately. She tried for reasonable, landed somewhere near manipulative, voice soft, words chosen for maximum emotional impact. This was Vicky at her most dangerous, when she pretended to be conciliatory. My mother sat in the chair by the window. Afternoon light caught the gray in her hair, made her look fragile, but her voice stayed steady. Victoria, you stole $380,000 from me. You mortgaged my house without permission. You made me live like a servant in my own home. You were planning to have me declared incompetent so you could control my money. Don't talk to me about working things out privately. That ship sailed when you treated me like property. Vicky's mask slipped briefly, anger flashing before control reasserted. You don't understand. The pressure I was under, the debt. I made bad choices, but I was trying to fix things. By drugging me? We found the emails, Vicky. We know about the Ambien questions, about the PI, about your plan to contest the trust. She went pale, recovered. I never actually drugged you. That was just research. I was worried about your health. Liar. The word came from Lily, standing in the doorway. Simple statement of fact. No anger, just observation. Vicky turned to her daughter. This doesn't concern you. It absolutely concerns me. I live here too. I watched you abuse Grandma for 4 years. I recorded it because I knew someday someone would need proof. And now that day is here. You recorded me? 47 videos. Time-stamped, dated, backed up, every threat, every insult, every moment you treated her like garbage. I gave them to Aunt Emma. They're part of the court file now. The color drained from Vicky's face. Calculation visible, running scenarios, weighing options. She was cornered and knew it. You know what the worst part is? It's not the stealing, not the control. It's that you made me believe I was worthless. That you said it so many times I started to think maybe you were right. Maybe I was just a burden. Maybe I should be grateful you tolerated me. My mother's voice cracked, but held. That's not theft, Victoria. That's erasure. That's taking someone's dignity and replacing it with shame. And I won't accept it anymore. I was trying to help. No, you were trying to control. There's a difference. Vicky stood there, arguments exhausted, masks dropped. For a moment, she looked younger, lost. The daughter who'd once been 7 years old and afraid of thunderstorms. Then that glimpse vanished, replaced by something harder. Fine. You want a war? We'll have a war. But don't expect mercy. Don't expect me to go quietly. I'll tell the court everything. About how Emma's been back 1 week, and suddenly you're a different person. About how you've always been forgetful, confused. About how you need supervision. I'll fight this with everything I have. Then you'll lose. We have evidence, you have excuses. We'll see. She left. Didn't slam the door this time, which was somehow worse. Controlled exit. Calculated. She'd regrouped during this conversation, found her battle stance. Tomorrow would be ugly. That night I couldn't sleep. Lay in the guest room staring at ceiling shadows, thinking about family and loyalty and the 1,000 ways people justify hurting each other. Vicky probably believed her own narrative, that she'd sacrificed, suffered, earned whatever she took, that my mother was ungrateful, that I was the real villain here, swooping in after years away to disrupt everything. Belief doesn't equal truth, but it shapes action. And tomorrow she'd act on beliefs that were poisonous. Friday morning arrived cold, rain turning to sleet. We dressed carefully. My mother in navy blue, simple jewelry, no makeup beyond lipstick. Looking responsible, capable, nothing that could be spun as confusion or impairment. I wore khakis and a blazer, veteran trying not to look intimidating. Lily stayed home, too young for courtrooms, but her videos would speak regardless. King County Superior Court downtown, limestone and authority. Hallways echoing with shoes on marble. Courtrooms named after judges who were probably dead, but certainly important ones. We found Department 12, filed in behind Daniel Park, took seats at the petitioner's table. Vicky sat across the aisle with her attorney, Jennifer Scott from Scott & Associates. 44 years old, reputation for aggressive defense, charging $500 per hour. Whatever retainer Vicky had paid came from somewhere questionable. Judge Catherine Monroe presided. 59, gray haircut businesslike, reading glasses on a chain. Her file lay open. She'd reviewed everything in advance, knew the players before they spoke. Former prosecutor, background in domestic violence cases, now handling family court with the weariness of someone who'd seen humanity's worst angles. All rise. We stood. The judge entered, robes black and official. Everyone sat simultaneously, choreographed. Good morning. This is case number 24CV8847, Hayes versus Hayes. We're here on emergency petitions regarding Eleanor Hayes. I've reviewed the filings from both parties. This is going to be a long morning, so let's establish ground rules. This is a hearing, not a trial. I'll hear testimony, review evidence, and make determinations on emergency orders only. Full trial will be scheduled if necessary. Understood? Both attorneys agreed. Ms. Scott, I'll hear from you first, since you filed the counterpetition challenging Mrs. Eleanor Hayes' competency. Jennifer Scott stood, smooth and practiced. Your Honor, my client Victoria Hayes has spent 4 years caring for her elderly parents under extraordinarily difficult circumstances. Her father has advanced Alzheimer's. Her mother has developed concerning symptoms, memory issues, confusion, uncharacteristic behavior. When Victoria's sister Emma returned after 12 years away, Mrs. Eleanor Hayes suddenly made dramatic changes, demanded Victoria leave, retained counsel, filed these proceedings. This rapid shift in behavior, combined with her known health issues, raises serious questions about whether she's acting of her own free will or being manipulated. Daniel Park didn't stand, just spoke from his seat. Your Honor, we have a psychological evaluation completed yesterday by Dr. Sarah Lindstrom. She found Mrs. Hayes fully competent in all respects. I'd like to enter that into evidence. Granted. The bailiff delivered the report. Judge Monroe read it carefully, taking her time. The courtroom stayed silent except for someone coughing in the back row. This is a comprehensive evaluation. Dr. Lindstrom's credentials are impeccable. She found no cognitive impairment, no signs of manipulation, no concerns about capacity. Ms. Scott, what evidence do you have to counter this? We have 4 years of observation. My client has documented instances of forgetfulness, confusion, poor judgment. Documented how? Notes, observations. There's a private investigator's report that Judge Monroe looked up sharply. You hired a PI to surveil your own mother? For her protection, to document her condition accurately. That's one interpretation. Another is that you were building a case to undermine her autonomy. Continue. Jennifer Scott produced the PI report. The judge scanned it, expressions souring. This report describes a woman shopping, driving, attending appointments. The investigator's conclusions about confusion are entirely subjective. A person taking time in a parking lot isn't evidence of dementia. It's evidence of being careful. She set it aside like it contaminated her fingers. What else do you have? Victoria herself can testify to her mother's decline. All right, call your witness. Vicky took the stand, swore the oath, sat with perfect posture, performed competence just like everyone else, just aimed differently. Jennifer Scott walked her through the narrative. 4 years of devoted care, mother's increasing frailty, father's Alzheimer's, financial management assumed out of necessity. Everything reasonable until Emma returned and poisoned the relationship. My mother's been increasingly forgetful. She'll ask the same question multiple times. She gets confused about dates, misplaces things. I was worried about her ability to manage finances, make healthcare decisions. I was trying to protect her. Is that why you had her move to a smaller bedroom? That was practical. She needed to be near the kitchen to help Dad at night. It wasn't punishment. Is that why you labeled food in the refrigerator to keep her from eating it? That was about my dietary restrictions. I have specific nutritional needs. Cross-examination, Mr. Park? Daniel stood, adjusted his glasses, didn't approach the stand, stayed at a distance, made Vicky speak loud, project across the room. Ms. Hayes, you say you were concerned about your mother's memory. Did you ever take her to a doctor for evaluation? I suggested it. Did you take her? She didn't want to go. But you had power of attorney for healthcare decisions, correct? Yes. So you could have insisted. I didn't want to force her. But you were willing to force her into the smallest bedroom, force her to work 14-hour days, force her to ask permission to eat food. You draw the line at medical care? Objection argumentative. Sustained. Rephrase, Mr. Park. Ms. Hayes, how much money did you take from your mother's accounts over the past 4 years? I didn't take anything. I managed household expenses. $380,000 in household expenses? It's a big house. There were medical costs, maintenance, everything. Do you have receipts? Documentation of where that money went? Pause. Too long. Some of it, yes. How much is some? I'd have to check my records. Your records show approximately $23,000 in legitimate household expenses. Where did the other $357,000 go? Various things, like casino debts, online gambling, personal shopping. Objection speculation. Your Honor, we have bank statements showing transfers to Tulalip Casino, multiple online betting sites, cash advances. This isn't speculation. Overruled, you may answer, Ms. Hayes. Vicky's composure cracked, finally. I had debts. I was trying to handle them. I made mistakes. You took your mother's money to cover gambling debts. That's not a mistake. That's theft. I plan to pay it back. When? After you gained guardianship and access to her $12 million trust? Vicky went rigid. Careful neutrality shattered. How do you know about that? Because your mother told us. Because unlike you, she trusts her family with the truth. Judge Monroe intervened. There's a $12 million trust? Yes, Your Honor. Held separately, inherited from Mrs. Hayes' mother. Irrevocable trust, completely protected from the claims Ms. Victoria Hayes is making. The judge looked at Vicky with something approaching disgust. You knew about this trust? No answer, cornered. Finally, I discovered it recently. And you hired an attorney to contest it, to claim it should be part of your father's estate, to argue your mother had no right to keep it separate, all while pretending to care for her out of love. That's not. Let me be very clear, Ms. Hayes. Your credibility with this court is approximately zero. Step down. She did, moving stiffly, mask completely gone now. Just a woman who'd gambled and lost. Judge Monroe addressed my mother directly. Mrs. Hayes, would you like to testify? My mother stood, approached the stand, swore honesty, sat down, folded her hands, looked smaller than her actual size, but her voice carried. Daniel Park led her through the timeline gently. Retirement, father's illness, Victoria's return, the gradual erosion of autonomy, the financial theft, the emotional abuse. How did it make you feel when your daughter treated you this way? Invisible. Like I'd stopped being a person and become a thing. Furniture that sometimes needed moved. I taught elementary school for 35 years. I shaped young minds, helped children learn to read, inspired curiosity. Then I retired, and suddenly all that meant nothing. I was just old, just in the way. Why didn't you speak up sooner? Because she's my daughter. Because I kept thinking it would get better. Because shame is a powerful silencer. When your own child treats you like you're worthless, part of you starts to believe maybe you are. Judge Monroe leaned forward. Mrs. Hayes, I want to be clear about something. Are you making these decisions of your own free will? Is anyone pressuring you to file these petitions? No one. This is entirely my choice. I love my daughter, but I can't live like this anymore. I need my dignity back. Cross-examination was brief. Jennifer Scott tried to paint my mother as confused, easily led, making choices based on Emma's influence. My mother didn't waver, answered every question with clarity that demolished the incompetence argument. When both sides rested, Judge Monroe removed her glasses and spoke directly. I'm going to make several findings. First, Mrs. Eleanor Hayes is clearly competent. Dr. Lindstrom's evaluation confirms it, but more importantly, I've watched her testify. She's articulate, rational, and making informed decisions. The petition to declare her incompetent is denied. Second, the evidence of financial abuse is overwhelming. Ms. Victoria Hayes has stolen a substantial sum, forged signatures, and manipulated her mother for personal gain. The emergency protective order is granted. Ms. Victoria Hayes, you have 48 hours to vacate the family home. You are prohibited from accessing any bank accounts belonging to your parents. All powers of attorney are revoked immediately. Third, Emma Hayes is appointed temporary guardian for William Hayes pending full evaluation. Mrs. Eleanor Hayes retains full autonomy over her own affairs. Fourth, this matter is set for full trial in 6 weeks. At that time, we'll address restitution, damages, and whether criminal charges should be pursued. In the meantime, both parties will refrain from contact except through counsel. Is that clear? Both attorneys acknowledged understanding. Vicky sat frozen, processing loss. My mother cried quietly, relief and sorrow mixed together. We left the courthouse into cold afternoon air. Daniel Park walked us to the parking garage, briefcase in one hand, confidence in his posture. That went as well as possible. Judge Monroe doesn't tolerate elder abuse. She's strong on this issue because her own mother was victimized years ago. You had the right judge. What happens now? Victoria has 2 days to move out. If she doesn't comply, we get law enforcement involved. You change locks, you move forward, and in 6 weeks we finish this. My mother looked back at the building. Somewhere inside, Vicky was probably arguing with her lawyer, planning next moves, refusing to accept defeat. Or maybe she was just sitting there, finally understanding what she'd lost. I destroyed my family today. No, you protected yourself. Victoria destroyed the family when she chose theft over love. You're just cleaning up the damage. It doesn't feel clean. It never does. We drove home. This house that was still contested territory for 48 more hours. Lily met us at the door, face anxious. When we told her the outcome, she hugged her grandmother so hard they both nearly fell. Inside, my father sat in his usual chair, unaware that the legal system had just rearranged his family. Sometimes, ignorance is protection. He smiled when he saw us, asked if dinner was ready soon. My mother went to him, kissed his forehead. Soon, honey, very soon. The rest of Friday passed in strange suspension. We were victorious, but still waiting for the final move. Vicky had 48 hours, but might use all of them. Might wait until the last possible second, asserting control the only way remaining. She came for her things Saturday evening, Moving truck rented, 2 friends helping. Wouldn't look at any of us. Packed efficiently, taking only what was clearly hers. Left no note, no final words. Just absence, where presence had been overwhelming. Lily stood at her bedroom window, watching her mother leave. I joined her, said nothing. Sometimes company is enough. When the truck pulled away, my mother sat on the couch and just breathed, in and out, like she'd forgotten how and was relearning. The house felt different already, lighter, though nothing structural had changed. We ate dinner together, 3 generations around the table plus my father, who ate mechanically but seemed content. No one talked about Court or Vicky or what came next. We talked about small things, weather, Lily's history paper, whether the azaleas in the front yard would survive winter. Normal conversation, radical in its simplicity. That night, I found my mother in the kitchen at midnight, staring at the refrigerator. She'd removed all the post-it notes, Vicky's territorial markers. The shelves looked spacious now, available. Can't sleep? Too much quiet. I got used to tension. Without it, I don't know what to do with my thoughts. Give it time, your brain will adjust. She pulled out milk, poured 2 glasses. We sat at the table in darkness, city lights through the window providing enough illumination. Do you think she'll ever forgive me? Does it matter? The question right now is whether you forgive yourself. For what? For taking so long to act, for letting it happen, all the guilt you're carrying around. She sipped milk, considering. I don't know. Part of me still thinks I should have handled it differently. Part of me wonders if I failed her somewhere along the way, raised her wrong, created this. You didn't create her addiction. You didn't create her choices. She's an adult. She made this. But I'm her mother. I'm supposed to… Stop. You're supposed to love her. You did. You're not supposed to be stolen from. You're not supposed to accept abuse. Love doesn't require self-destruction. She set down the glass. When did you get so wise? 12 years watching people die for causes they barely understood. Teaches you what matters. We sat in comfortable silence. Outside, rain started again, typical Seattle, washing everything continuously. I thought about warriors and battles and the difference between violence that protects and violence that destroys. My mother had just fought the hardest war possible, against family, against guilt, against the voice that said she didn't deserve better. And she'd won, not perfectly, not without cost, but enough. Enough to breathe, enough to start rebuilding, enough to remember that invisible was a choice other people made, not a condition she had to accept. Upstairs, Lily's light was still on, probably texting friends or reading or just existing in the way 16-year-olds do when the adult world becomes too much. My father slept the sleep of someone whose memory couldn't hold on to trauma. And somewhere across the city, Vicky was unpacking in some temporary space, probably still believing she was the victim here, probably already spinning narratives that absolved her. Let her spin them. The court had spoken. The evidence had landed. Truth had established territory. We finished our milk. My mother rinsed the glasses, put them in the drainer. A small domestic act that meant everything. Her kitchen, her choice, her glasses to rinse when she wanted. Tomorrow we'd start the work of actually healing. Tonight, we'd just sit with the fact of survival. The full trial was 6 weeks away. More revelations probably waiting, more complications certainly ahead. But the immediate battle was won, and sometimes that's enough. 6 weeks is a strange length of time. Long enough to establish new rhythms, short enough that the old ones still haunt doorways. We lived in the space between emergency and resolution, waiting for trial while pretending normalcy was possible. My mother started small, took back the master bedroom, moved her belongings from that claustrophobic den into the space she'd shared with my father for 40 years, hung her clothes in the closet, arranged books on the nightstand, reclaimed territory inch by inch. The room still smelled like Vicky's perfume for the first week. We opened windows despite the cold, let Seattle wind scrub the air clean. Lily helped redecorate. 16 years old, suddenly freed from walking on eggshells, she brought color back into the house. Throw pillows in turquoise and coral, plants that needed sunlight, artwork from her high school friends. The house stopped feeling like a museum of someone else's control. But nights were harder. My mother would wake around 3, that hour when anxiety doesn't need reasons. I'd find her downstairs, tea cooling in a mug, staring at nothing specific. Can't shut your brain off? I keep thinking about the trial, what she'll say, what I'll have to say in response, whether I'm strong enough to face her again. You faced her in the emergency hearing, you'll face her at trial. That was different. That was survival mode. This feels like choosing to hurt her, deliberately. She chose this, not you. You're just refusing to be hurt anymore. That's not the same thing as attacking. Semantics, probably. But the guilt settled into her bones anyway, permanent as arthritis. Daughters aren't supposed to take mothers to court. Mothers aren't supposed to need protection from daughters. The whole situation violated some unspoken contract about how families should work. Daniel Park prepared us methodically. 3 meetings per week, reviewing evidence, rehearsing testimony, anticipating Jennifer Scott's strategy. He operated like a chess player, thinking 6 moves ahead, preparing counters for arguments Vicky hadn't made yet. She'll claim the money was loans, not theft, that you gave verbal permission. We need documentation showing you didn't. I have bank statements. None of them show my signature on withdrawal authorizations for those amounts. Good. She'll also argue that you benefited from her presence, that without her, your husband wouldn't have received proper care. William's medical records will show he received standard care, nothing exceptional. And I was the one coordinating with doctors, not her. Perfect. Now, hardest question. When she cries on the stand, and she will, how will you respond? My mother paused, cup halfway to her lips. I don't know. Part of me still wants to comfort her. That's the part that got you into this. You need to find the part that wants justice more than peace. She practiced that, sitting in Daniel's office, imagining Vicky crying, building walls against sympathy, unlearning decades of putting her daughter's feelings above her own well-being. Meanwhile, Vicky wasn't silent. She'd started a Facebook campaign, posting carefully curated versions of events, long paragraphs about sacrifice and betrayal, about ungrateful family members who abandoned their duty. Comments flooded in from people who knew nothing except the story she fed them. My mother was painted as confused, manipulated, turning against the daughter who'd loved her most. Daniel advised ignoring it. Don't engage, don't respond. Let the court speak. But Lily couldn't ignore it. She read every post, every comment, watched her mother perform victimhood for strangers. One night she came downstairs, phone in hand, face flushed with anger. She's telling people Grandma has dementia, that Aunt Emma brainwashed her, that this whole thing is elder abuse but in reverse, the daughter trying to protect her mother from predatory relatives. People believe what they want to believe. Your mother's followers want to believe her because the alternative makes them uncomfortable. How do you stand it? Watching someone lie and not being able to correct them. You remember that truth isn't about popularity. The court will see evidence. That's what matters. Lily wasn't satisfied, but nodded. She'd learned early that fairness was an ideal, not a guarantee. Week 3 brought complications. Daniel called late on a Tuesday, voice tight with controlled concern. We have a problem. Vicky filed a motion to exclude the email evidence. Claims it was obtained illegally, violates privacy, should be inadmissible. Was it illegal the way Rachel got it? Gray area. The email account was family property. Your mother technically had rights to access it. But Vicky had changed passwords, which could be argued as revoking permission. Depends on the judge's interpretation. What happens if the emails get excluded? We lose our strongest evidence of premeditation. The PI reports, the guardianship plans, the drug research, all of that disappears. We're left with financial records and testimony. Still winnable, but harder. When does the judge rule? Hearing is Friday. We'll argue our position. Emphasize the family account angle, the fact that your mother was the victim investigating her abuser. Most judges are sympathetic to that. Most isn't all. No, it isn't. Friday's hearing felt like a trial preview. Same courtroom, same judge, lawyers presenting arguments about admissibility and evidence standards. Jennifer Scott was eloquent, painting Rachel's access as hacking, as violation of privacy, as fruit from a poisoned tree that would contaminate the entire case. Daniel countered carefully. Mrs. Hayes had every right to investigate financial abuse. The email account was registered to her husband, making her a legitimate user. Changing passwords without the account owner's consent was itself potentially illegal. The evidence was critical to showing pattern and intent. Judge Monroe listened, asked pointed questions, gave no indication which way she leaned. At the end, she reserved ruling. I'll issue a written decision by Monday. Until then, both parties should prepare for trial, as if all evidence will be admitted. better to be overprepared. We left uncertain, 50-50 odds maybe. Everything we'd built dependent on a judge's interpretation of technical legalities. That weekend, something shifted. Vicky stopped posting on Facebook. Her silence was louder than the previous noise. Daniel's investigator reported seeing her meeting with people who didn't look like lawyers. Men in expensive suits with faces that suggested violence was just business. The loan sharks. She is probably trying to negotiate extensions, show them she has a court case pending, promise payment after trial. What if she can't pay them? Then they'll come after assets. The house, the trust, anything they think she can access. These people don't care about legal protections. They operate outside systems. Could they hurt her? Physically? It's possible. They use intimidation first. Threats, vandalism, public humiliation. Violence comes later if debts remain unpaid. My mother absorbed this information with visible conflict. Part of her wanted Vicky to face consequences. Part of her still wanted to protect the daughter she'd raised, even from dangers the daughter had created. Should we warn her? I don't know, is that enabling or just human? Maybe both. She decided not to warn her. Vicky was an adult, making adult choices, facing adult consequences. Protecting her from those consequences was the pattern that had enabled everything else. Judge Monroe's ruling arrived Monday via email. Daniel forwarded it with a single sentence: "We won." The written decision was thorough, citing precedent about victims' rights to investigate crimes against them, family property expectations, and the greater good of exposing elder abuse. The emails would be admitted, all of them. Jennifer Scott filed an appeal. It was denied within 24 hours. We were going to trial with our strongest weapons intact. The final week before trial felt like descending stairs in darkness, each step forward uncertain but inevitable. My mother barely ate. Lily oscillated between supportive and terrified. I maintained routines because routines were control, and control was the only thing keeping chaos at bay. Wednesday, Vicky showed up at the house. Technically violated the no-contact order, but she stood on the sidewalk, not property. Technically compliant while spiritually defiant. I answered the door. She looked worse than the emergency hearing. Thinner, hair less maintained, exhaustion showing through makeup. "I need to talk to Mom, please, just 5 minutes. The order says no contact. I'm not trying to intimidate her. I'm trying to apologize. You can apologize in court, under oath. Emma, please. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt her, but she's still my mother. Doesn't that mean anything? It meant something when you were stealing from her. It meant something when you were planning to drug her. It means something now that you want mercy. I'm desperate. The people I owe, they're not patient. They're threatening me. I need money or I need the case to settle. I need something. That's not our problem. It could be if something happens to me She stopped, swallowed. Behind her, a car idled at the curb. Tinted windows anonymous. Probably just a neighbor. Probably. If you what? Nothing, forget it. Just tell Mom I tried. She walked back to a different car. Older model, dented bumper. The car at the curb didn't follow. Might have been nothing. Might have been surveillance. In this new reality, threats came from angles we hadn't learned to watch yet. That night, my mother asked what Vicky wanted. To apologize, to settle, to make this go away before consequences catch up. What did you tell her? That apologies happened in court. Did she seem scared? Yes, but fear doesn't erase what she did. It just means she's finally understanding consequences exist. My mother nodded slowly. Then she asked something unexpected. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? Define right. Morally, ethically, as a mother. You're protecting yourself from someone who hurt you. That's always right, regardless of genetics. Even if it destroys her? She destroyed herself. You're just refusing to be collateral damage. But the doubt remained, settling into corners of her mind where certainty couldn't reach. Trial day arrived cold and clear, rare Seattle sunshine making everything sharp-edged. We dressed carefully again, armor of respectability. Daniel met us at the courthouse steps, briefcase in one hand, confidence worn like cologne. Ready? No, but we're going anyway. That's the definition of courage. Inside, the courtroom was larger than before. Gallery seats filled with spectators, some court watchers, some journalists covering elder abuse cases, some just people with time and morbid curiosity. Vicky sat at the defense table, Jennifer Scott beside her, whispering last-minute strategy. All eyes. Judge Monroe entered, settled, surveyed her kingdom of conflict resolution. She'd read everything, knew the players, understood the stakes. This wasn't just about money. This was about whether stealing from your parents was acceptable if you called it caregiving. "We're here for trial in Hayes versus Hayes." Opening statements, Mr. Park. Daniel stood, addressed the room with calm precision. "Your Honor, this case is about power, control, and what happens when love is weaponized. Victoria Hayes didn't just steal money from her mother. She stole dignity, autonomy, and years that can't be returned. The evidence will show systematic abuse, financial exploitation, and a pattern of behavior designed to erase her mother's humanity. We're asking this court to restore what was taken and ensure it never happens again." Jennifer Scott's opening painted Vicky as tragic hero, daughter who sacrificed everything, received no gratitude, was now being persecuted for devotion. She emphasized Emma's absence, the timing of her return, the suddenness of legal action. Manipulation, she suggested repeatedly. Outside influence corrupting natural family bonds. The first witness was Jim Crawford, the warehouse manager who'd known our family for 30 years. Daniel walked him through observations, changes in my mother's demeanor, Vicky's increasing control, the isolation from old friends. Mrs. Hayes used to come by the warehouse every week, bring cookies, chat with the guys, check on business. Then she just stopped. When I called to ask if she was okay, Vicky always answered. Said her mother was busy, couldn't come to the phone. I'd have to call back later. But later never worked either. Did you ever speak with Mrs. Hayes directly during those years? Once. I ran into her at the grocery store. She looked diminished, like someone had turned down her volume. I asked how she was doing, and she started crying right there in the produce section. Said she was fine, apologized for crying, asked me not to mention seeing her to Vicky. Why not? She said Vicky didn't like her going out alone, said it worried her daughter. Cross-examination couldn't shake his testimony. He was credible, consistent, clearly pained by what he'd witnessed. Next came Dr. Sarah Lindstrom, the psychologist who'd evaluated my mother. She explained competency standards, her testing methods, her conclusions. Mrs. Hayes demonstrated cognitive function in the 93rd percentile for her age group. Excellent memory, clear reasoning, no signs of dementia or impairment. She understood complex financial concepts, articulated her situation coherently, and showed appropriate emotional responses. In my professional opinion, she is fully capable of managing her own affairs. Jennifer Scott tried to undermine her. Couldn't a competent person still be manipulated? Anyone can be manipulated. But Mrs. Hayes showed no signs of it. Her decisions were consistent with her values, her personality, her long-term patterns. She wasn't parroting someone else's words. She was speaking her own truth. Rachel Foster testified about the email evidence, carefully avoiding specifics about how she'd accessed it. Technical explanation about family accounts, shared access, password recovery procedures. Enough truth to satisfy legal requirements. Enough omission to avoid perjury. The emails were entered into evidence, projected on screens for the courtroom to see. Vicky's words in black and white, impossible to reinterpret. I need guardianship established before Emma interferes. Higher doses could cause memory impairment and confusion. She has more money than anyone realizes. Each email landed like evidence in a murder trial, building the case that this wasn't confusion or poor judgment, but calculated exploitation. Then came Lily's videos. 47 clips, we only showed 12. The worst ones. Vicky screaming, Vicky threatening nursing homes, Vicky calling my mother a burden. The courtroom went silent watching them, collective witnessing of private cruelty. Lily testified briefly, answering questions about when and why she'd recorded. Her voice shook but held. I recorded because I needed proof. Because adults don't believe kids, and I knew someday someone would need to see this. Someone needed to know it wasn't normal. Jennifer Scott's cross-examination was gentle, surprisingly. Even she seemed to recognize that attacking a teenage girl for protecting her grandmother wouldn't play well. Day 2 belonged to my mother. She took the stand mid-morning, after character witnesses had established baseline. Daniel led her through the timeline again. Slower this time, more detail. Each moment of erosion, each loss of autonomy, each time she'd felt herself disappearing. When did you realize you needed help? When I found myself apologizing for being alive. When I ate leftover food standing by the sink because I felt guilty using a plate. When I scheduled my heart medication around Vicky's convenience instead of doctor's orders. That's when I understood. I'd stopped being a person. I'd become an inconvenience that occasionally needed maintenance. Tell the court about discovering the plan for guardianship. I found the emails by accident. I was looking for a recipe she'd mentioned sending herself. I saw the subject line, guardianship strategy. I read it, then I read everything else. That's when I knew this wasn't stress or poor communication. This was intentional. She was building a case to have me declared incompetent so she could control my money. How did that make you feel? Betrayed doesn't cover it. Violated doesn't cover it. It felt like being erased while still breathing. Like watching someone plan your funeral while you're standing right there, trying to tell them you're not dead yet. The courtroom absorbed her words. Gallery full of strangers bearing witness to private devastation. Jennifer Scott's cross-examination aimed for sympathy, tried to frame everything as misunderstanding. Didn't Vicky have good intentions? Wasn't she overwhelmed? Couldn't mistakes be forgiven? My mother didn't bend. Answered each question with clarity that left no room for reinterpretation. Good intentions don't justify theft. Being overwhelmed doesn't excuse abuse. Mistakes can be forgiven when they're acknowledged. My daughter hasn't acknowledged anything except that she got caught. Then came Vicky's turn. She took the stand looking fragile, calculated fragility designed to evoke protection. Jennifer Scott guided her through the defense narrative, devoted daughter, ungrateful mother, vindictive sister. Everything framed to maximize sympathy and minimize accountability. I gave up everything for them, my career, my relationships, my future. I stayed when Emma left. I was there every single day. But you stole $380,000. I used household funds for household purposes. That's not theft. Gambling debts are household purposes. I had personal problems. I was trying to manage them. By taking your mother's money without permission, she benefited from my presence. The money was payment for services rendered. Services she didn't request and didn't want. She needed them whether she wanted them or not. The entitlement was breathtaking. She genuinely believed that staying gave her ownership, that proximity equaled rights, that her mother's money was payment owed for the burden of caregiving. Daniel Park's cross-examination was surgical. He didn't attack her character directly. He just asked questions that exposed it. Ms. Hayes, you say you sacrificed your career. What was your career? Pause. I was in business development. For which company? I was between position, freelance consulting. How much income did you earn from freelance consulting in the 4 years you lived with your parents? Another pause. It was variable, project-based. Was it zero? I had expenses, overhead. It's complicated. I'll simplify. Zero income, correct? Was direct? Essentially. So you weren't sacrificing a career. You were unemployed and living rent-free. That's reductive. But accurate? She couldn't answer. The narrative crumbled under basic math. Let's talk about the $12 million trust. When did you discover its existence? About a year ago. How did you discover it? I found documents in the house safe. Documents you accessed without permission. My mother had given me the combination. For emergency access to insurance papers. Not for investigating her private assets. I had a right to know. Why? It's not your money. It's held in an irrevocable trust that explicitly excludes you. I'm her daughter. I should have been told. Why? So you could plan how to steal it too? Objection. Sustained. Rephrase. Let me ask differently. After discovering the trust, did you contact an attorney about contesting it? I sought legal advice about family assets. That's normal. You tried to claim your mother had no right to keep inherited assets separate from your father's estate. Tried to gain access through guardianship. That's not normal. That's predatory. I was protecting my parents. From what? Their own money? She had no answer. Sat there exposed, performance shredded by simple logic. Daniel finished with the loan sharks, the gambling debts, the threatening text messages. Entered into evidence, time-stamped, proving the real motivation wasn't love, but desperation. When he sat down, Vicky looked smaller. The confident defendant had dissolved, leaving just a woman who'd gambled and lost in every sense. Closing arguments happened that afternoon. Jennifer Scott did her best, emphasizing family complexity, the difficulty of caregiving, the gray areas in relationships. But her heart wasn't in it. She was a professional fulfilling contractual obligations to a client who'd lied to her. Daniel Park's closing was quiet devastation. He didn't yell, didn't need to. He simply listed facts, let them accumulate into undeniable truth. Victoria Hayes stole. She manipulated. She planned to incapacitate her mother to gain access to money she wasn't entitled to. This isn't complicated. This isn't gray area. This is elder abuse, textbook definition. The question isn't what she did. The evidence proves that. The question is what this court will do about it. Judge Monroe took 2 hours to deliberate. We waited in the hallway, time stretching elastic. My mother sat with hands folded, face unreadable. Lily paced. I stood by windows watching the city pretend normalcy was possible. When the bailiff called us back, the courtroom felt different, heavier. Like the air itself knew something had been decided.
All around?
Judge Monroe returned. Pages of written findings. She didn't rush. This verdict would be referenced in future cases. Set precedent. Matter beyond just us. I've reviewed all evidence and testimony. My findings are as follows. First, Victoria Hayes committed financial elder abuse. She systematically stole from her mother, forged signatures, and manipulated accounts. The amount stolen totals $380,000, not including the $300,000 in unauthorized mortgage. Second, she committed emotional abuse. The videos and testimony establish a pattern of degradation, isolation, and control designed to break her mother's will and autonomy. Third, she engaged in undue influence, attempting to gain guardianship through false claims of incompetence. This represents one of the most serious violations of trust possible between family members. Therefore, I rule in favor of Eleanor Hayes on all counts. Victoria Hayes is ordered to pay restitution of $680,000, payable over 10 years. She is ordered to complete 18 months of gambling addiction treatment and 2 years of family therapy. She is prohibited from contact with her mother, except through supervised therapeutic settings. Additionally, I'm referring this case to the prosecutor's office for criminal investigation. The level of premeditation and exploitation warrants criminal review. Regarding the question of incarceration, I could sentence Ms. Hayes to prison. The law allows it. But Mrs. Eleanor Hayes has requested I consider alternatives. She wants her daughter to receive help, not just punishment. I'm honoring that request with a suspended sentence. 2 years in prison, suspended pending completion of restitution plan and treatment programs. Any violation results in immediate incarceration. This case represents everything wrong with how we sometimes treat the elderly, as resources to be extracted rather than humans to be honored. I hope other families watching this will learn. Elder abuse is not a private matter. It's a crime. And this court will not tolerate it. Court is adjourned. The gavel fell. Final, absolute, we'd won completely. Vicky sat motionless, processing the enormity of consequences. Her attorney was already packing, done with this case and its complications. Jennifer Scott nodded at Daniel Park, professional respect between adversaries. Then she left. We stayed seated while the gallery emptied. My mother cried silently, tears of relief and grief mixed. Lily hugged her. I stood behind them both, hands on their shoulders, forming a protective circle. Daniel Pack approached. You did it. Full victory. It doesn't feel like victory. It never does when family is involved. But you're safe now. You're protected. That's worth something. It's worth everything. Outside, reporters waited. Local news covering the trial, interested in the elder abuse angle, the money, the family drama. Daniel gave a brief statement. Mrs. Hayes fought for her dignity and won. This verdict sends a message that abuse won't be tolerated, regardless of familial relationships. My mother refused to speak to cameras. She'd said everything that mattered under oath. We drove home in afternoon light, Seattle showing its rare, beautiful face, mountain views clear for once. The house was still ours, officially now, legally protected. Vicky couldn't return, couldn't make claims, couldn't contaminate the space with her presence. That evening, as we made dinner together, all of us helping, normalcy established through small acts, the doorbell rang. I answered. Vicky stood there, violating the no-contact order, but clearly past caring about minor violations. I need to talk to Mom last time, I promise. You're not supposed to be here. I know, I'll leave if she asks, but I need to try. My mother appeared behind me, heard the voices, came to see. When she saw Vicky, something in her face softened despite everything. It's okay, Emma. 5 minutes. I'll be right inside. They sat on the front steps, distance between them, not touching. I watched through the window, couldn't hear words, but saw body language. Vicky crying, My mother listening, rigid but present. Conversation lasted maybe 7 minutes. Then Vicky stood, walked away, didn't look back. My mother came inside, face wet, composure cracked. What did she say? That she's sorry, that she understands why I did this, that she hopes someday I'll forgive her, that she's going to get help, real help, because she doesn't want to be this person anymore. Do you believe her? I don't know, maybe, maybe not. But I wanted to hear it. Needed to hear her acknowledge the harm, even if it's too late to undo it. Forgiveness is a process, not a destination. Then I'm at the beginning, very beginning. That's okay. You don't have to be generous to someone who stole your dignity. You just have to heal yourself. She nodded, wiped tears, straightened shoulders. Then she went to the kitchen and continued chopping vegetables for dinner like nothing had interrupted her. Resilience looks like ordinary action. 1 year later, we returned to Golden Gardens Park. Same beach where everything had shifted, where secrets had been revealed, where my mother had first asked for help. This time we brought my father in his wheelchair, parked where he could see the water, even if memory couldn't hold why it mattered. The year had transformed us individually and collectively. My mother had started teaching again, 2 mornings a week at her old elementary school, volunteer reading specialist. The principal had welcomed her back with tears. Purpose restores what bitterness destroys. Lily turned 17, started looking at colleges, talked about majoring in social work. Wants to help people trapped like Grandma was, she explained. Help them find ways out. I'd found work in logistics downtown, using military experience for corporate supply chains. Normal hours, steady pay, boring work that felt like luxury after 12 years of deployment schedules. Vicky had completed 9 months of treatment, was working at a bookstore, making tiny restitution payments, attending therapy. She'd requested a supervised visit for Thanksgiving. My mother was considering it. We sat on the blanket, ate sandwiches, watched ferries cross the Sound. My father dozed in afternoon sun, peaceful in the way people are when memory can't hold pain. Do you regret it, fighting back? My mother considered seriously. No. I regret not doing it sooner. I regret years spent invisible. But standing up? Never. What changed between accepting and refusing? I saw myself through your eyes, through Lily's eyes, and I realized, if I wouldn't want this for either of you, why would I accept it for myself? We teach people how to treat us. I was teaching Vicky that abuse was acceptable. That lesson nearly destroyed us both. She pulled out the journal from that first year, pages of documentation and survival. This is my reminder. When I doubt whether I did the right thing, I read these pages. Remember what I accepted. Remember why I stopped. She closed it, set it aside. You know what's strange? I'm happier now than I've been in decades. Not because I hurt Vicky, but because I stopped letting her hurt me. That distinction matters. Lily returned from the water, handed her grandmother a smooth stone. For your collection. Because you collect beautiful things now. My mother held it, turning it in sunlight, smiled genuinely, the kind that reaches eyes and means it. We stayed until the sky performed its sunset routine, pink and orange and purple layered like watercolors. My father woke briefly, looked at my mother, smiled without recognition but with something deeper. Love survives memory. Driving home, the city moved around us with its usual rhythms. We were just one family among thousands, each carrying private wars and victories that would never make headlines. At the house, my mother made tea for everyone. Her kitchen, her schedule, her choice about everything. Small autonomies that meant the world. That night, she stood at the window looking out at porch lights clicking on as darkness arrived. Quiet neighborhood, ordinary evening, extraordinary peace. Thank you for coming back, for helping me fight. You don't need to thank me. That's what family does. The good kind, anyway. She smiled at that. The good kind? Yes. We stood together in comfortable silence, watching the street. Sometimes presence is the whole conversation. A year had passed since the emergency hearing. 18 months since I'd come home to find my mother erased. The legal battle was finished. But the real work, healing, rebuilding, learning to trust again, that was ongoing. But we had time now, years my mother could spend as herself, fully visible, fully human. That was the victory. Not the money returned or the justice served, but the time reclaimed. Outside, rain began again, soft and persistent, washing everything clean for tomorrow. Inside this house, 3 generations of women had learned the difference between endurance and complicity, between keeping peace and losing yourself to maintain it. My mother had found that line, had stepped across it, faced her daughter in court, demanded dignity over silence. She'd lost a relationship but gained herself. That trade wasn't fair, shouldn't have been necessary, but it was worth making. And that would have to be enough.